Welcome back to What's in the Box. So what have we got this time? Well, you may have noticed in my bookshelf that I've actually got a number of Airfix models, and this is one of my sort of childhood passions. So I thought I'd share with you something a bit different this time, and that's my Airfix Battle of Waterloo figures. Let's take a look. Now, by way of background, I've always loved the Airfix Napoleonic series range. My parents bought me a load of the figure sets individually in sort of 1975-76 when I was 10 or 11. And I always had these grand plans of painting them all and doing war games, but I think my sort of desire versus my ability were sort of poles apart. Anyway, in 2008, Airfix released this set, which is the Battle of Waterloo set. And the great thing about this set is it includes the whole range of Airfix Napoleonic figures, the Farmhouse, and also some extras as well, which I'll show you. Now, I think this first came out in the sort of early 80s. I do remember seeing it in some toy shops because at the time I was always surprised that one of the sort of extras that come in this wasn't actually commercially available. But anyway, you can see on the front here you've got this very dramatic scene of the Highlanders and the Imperial Guard fighting each other. This set came with a whole load of the paints as well, so you could actually obviously paint your figures. On the side of the packet you've got images of some of the figures themselves all painted, plus this sort of diorama. And then on the back you've got an even better picture of the diorama with all the figures on it, and also all the soldiers and numbers of figures and so forth that you actually got with it. And you'll see here it also talks about the Farmyard figures as well. That's the extra ones that weren't commercially available. So let's start to have a look at some of these. I'll clear that away just so we can see everything. This is one of the original packets that I actually had when I was a kid. You'll see it's got all the sellotape where I was trying to stick the figures down and stop them falling out, because true to form as a kid, the first thing I did was take every single figure off its sprue so I could sort of stand them up. But sadly that then makes painting them an absolute nightmare. Anyway, you'll see there that you've got details of how to paint them. This was the only reference that we had at the time, so sadly we didn't have the internet, and it was never particularly easy. And this is a whole load of the actual figures that I've painted. So there's more than one set here, because I had the original ones from when I was a kid, and then I've also got some that I've painted from the 2008 range. And I was fairly new to sort of painting a lot of these when I did these a few years back, because you'll see that I've sort of painted them in a gloss, or I've actually varnished them in a gloss paint as well, which was a bit of a schoolboy error really, because it gives them that sort of really weird shine. So not particularly keen on that now, but I did stick them all to bases so that I could actually sort of use them for war game. But you'll see the details on these are really nice, and they've got some really great sort of costumes and outfits. Here's the full range of them. And this is another series from my youth where I've got some extras as well. So the Waterloo British Artillery. So really nice, this set. And inside this one you actually got some instruction sheets as well as to how to fit all the actual figures together and soldiers together. So that was a really nice one, that. Now, this is one of the first series that I did actually fully complete the painting of when I was a kid. So it was a bit of a nightmare then. We didn't have things like the acrylic paints, and I didn't use primer, but we had to use enamel paints, which are the sort of small little tins. And it was an absolute nightmare, this stuff, because it was really sticky, and I just found it was really quite difficult to sort of paint on. Obviously, when I came to do this in 2008, 2009, then actual paints were much easier than with the acrylics, but again had to use the primer, and that was a bit of a learning experience for me as well. And one of the things that I really like about this set is that it relates to the Royal Artillery, which my great-grandfather was in, and whilst he wasn't in Waterloo, he did start in 1877, so again it was still all very sort of grand and pomp in terms of some of their outfits at the time. Next we go to the French Artillery. So I've only got a single set of these ones, so This is what they look like, and again sadly I've used a gloss varnish, so not the world's best when it comes to sort of authentic look with this sort of shine on them. But again, nice little set, this one, and obviously lots of extra horses on it, and then you've got this sort of squad of soldiers as well, which I never really quite understood why they existed, but anyway, I've stuck them all together. And next we have the Prussians. This is quite a late issue actually. These came out in 1979, so the very first ones were the Highlanders, which I'll show you in a moment. They were in 1969, and then over the years they sort of released subsequent ones of these. But here you'll see obviously these figures, and I'll show you some sort of details of these later on actually, compared to some of the other ones, because the sizes just look a bit weird. I mean, these are all meant to be 1/72 scale, but these look quite thin. They look actually more normal than some of the others, but anyway, I'll show you those in a moment. I guess I'm less keen on this particular ones, because it might have been how I've painted them, but they just all look very bland, I think. And again, I think I was probably learning a little bit of using the matte varnish on this particular one, because it's sort of given it a bit of a sheen really, and taken away some of the colour after I'd painted them. So again, not particularly keen on this particular set, but there we go. That's probably more down to me than the actual Airfix. We then turn to the Waterloo French Cavalry. So we've done the Hussars, so here's obviously the opposite numbers in French. So again, not the world's best painting. You can start to see some of the yellowing actually coming through from the glue on these ones. You'll also note that I've glued these onto sort of stands, because it makes it much easier to obviously move them around. The downside is that the glue seems to have started to sort of change form a little bit, and also it started to raise off the cardboard base that I've put them on. So hey, that's again part of the learning, I guess. But I think I used enamel paint on this, which is why it looks a little bit more chunky than some of the other ones. And sadly, gloss varnish again. I did actually complement this with another set of cavalry. These aren't actually Airfix figures. I'm not sure quite what these ones were, but these were quite nice as well. This set sort of reminded me a little bit of the Hussars in terms of their style. But I thought, given that I got a whole load of extra British, I thought I'd better have a probably similar number of French as well. So yeah, these are nice, but I do prefer the British ones. Right, so couple in here actually we'll go through. So this is the Highlanders and the Farmhouse set. So we'll start off with the Highlanders. So these are really nice, really colourful, and these were an absolute nightmare to paint, because of course they've got their sort of all the different colours and the tartan and everything else to actually put on. So I did like these though. Visually they look great, and it was nice to see. They obviously had different ranges of people being killed on this one. You've obviously got the man lying on the floor, and then you've got the one being shot as well. So that was a really nice touch. And then you've got the Farmhouse set. So I'll show you this in a bit more detail again later on. But I mean, the first thing that's obvious is that these figures seem again much bigger when you compare it to the you know, the actual sort of other series. But anyway, it's still quite nice, and the fact that you've got all these sort of extra accessories like the sort of wheat and barley, and then you've got the barrels, all of which I sort of went and stuck down just to sort of give it a bit of an effect there. So yeah, I really like those, and the barricades obviously are quite good as well in terms of just sort of scene setting. So a little bit basic in terms of their design, but I still would look to have these. And like I say, it was really weird that Airfix never actually issued this as a set in their own right. Next we'll have the French Infantry. Now I've got a load of these, and I don't quite know why I ended up with so many, but I've obviously started to get a little bit better at my painting on these ones as well, because I'd started to sort of whitewash a sort of a dirt colour on, just to make them look a bit more weathered in terms of the figures. So my painting skills had started to improve a little bit by this time. I was using a magnifying glass, I think, for some of these actually when it came to painting the detail. The first lot I just did by eyesight. That's where you can probably tell just how ropey some of the actual detail is. But started to look a little bit more accurate here. The fact that I managed to paint moustaches on all of them was quite something as well. Now, I mentioned earlier about proportions, so here's the French infantry and here are those Prussians. So as I was saying, you can see that the relative sizes are just different. They look much smaller and thinner, whereas these look more sort of almost slightly comical. They've sort of got short and stubby, but maybe they're just trying to make them look French, I don't know. Anyway, it was always struck me as weird that these two just seemed so out of kilter with each other. Next we've got the British infantry, so all in their red. So this was a nice set. I certainly liked having painted this one. So again, range here, you've got obviously the commander with his horse and sword. I think that was quite nice, and you've got a couple of wounded people. But a range of different poses here. You probably got about 10 or so. And again, I tried to keep them sort of fairly consistent when I was sort of sticking them on the base, so that you could actually make them sort of feel like they were in a square if you wanted to sort of reenact some of the square formations properly as well. And finally, I had this set as well. So this is the French Imperial Guard. I really liked these as a kid because I just thought they looked so cool, the outfits that they actually wore. And bizarrely, this was one of the last ones that I actually came to paint when it came to sort of finishing these all off. So this is the set here. And I don't know why it took me so long to actually get around to doing these ones, but probably because I wanted to do them properly. So much detail on these ones. I mean, these took ages. And the weird thing was that when I'd actually finished doing them, I then went and stuck them all onto their bases. And for some reason or other, I lost a whole set and I couldn't find them. So it was a group of about 4 of the soldiers, and I was hunting everywhere for them. Thought I'd sort of lost them, thrown them in the bin, really couldn't find them. Anyway, we had a dog. And then a few days later, when I was actually taking him for a walk and picking up after him, I found there were some very much decimated French Imperial Guards in amongst all his doings. So yeah, they'd obviously been casualties of war. So I had to go and get myself some more to actually complete the set here. But anyway, these for me I think are really great. So they've come second to the Royal Artillery, but I just really love the sort of detail and just the whole imagery of this particular set. Now, when you bought the box set, this is what you got. You got these sort of instruction sheets showing you how to make the farm. There was a colour coding as well for the soldiers and the artillery. There was obviously details of how to fit some of the sort of accessories together, and a bit more information there about some of the colouring. But this is the farm set, so this is really nicely made. You'll see I've actually glued bits of these together just so that they stick, but I've also done it in such a way that I can actually sort of take them apart and sort of store them well. So these pieces fit together like that, and then you've got a third piece here as well. So here's some better images of the actual farmhouse. And the nice thing about this one is that as well as sort of all the detail, and it's the fact that you can put your soldiers in them, you've got things like sort of doors that open and shut. And yeah, I think this looks really good when you actually set it all up. And that's indeed what I did do. So as a kid, I went and bought a massive big bit of wooden board, made papier-mâché hills, then got some of the sort of scenery stuff that you could sort of stick down and drape all this sort of greens and browns to make roads and grass, and yeah, make a display of this. So after I'd actually finished painting all of these in 2012, I thought I'd dig out this wargame board, and I still have it. It's a little bit warped now, but it still worked, and actually visually I think this really worked as well. But you know, 40 years, I think that certainly shows some perseverance, doesn't it, from getting this set originally to finally painting them all. So I think I probably should get a medal for that. I've had some war games with my youngest son as well, Ryan, when he was a bit younger, and yeah, it worked okay. But I think probably the main fun in all of this for me was the actual painting and the sort of satisfaction of actually having completed something that I'd always set myself out to do as a child. Now, I will mention one other thing actually in this set is that whilst I've made my own terrain, you do actually get these terrain sheets here, which I've never actually painted and used myself. Visually they would have worked better if I'd actually put them on the sort of set that we got here, but then you can't actually sort of really do any wargaming with them properly, so it literally is just purely for display. So something I've kept. I've never got around to sort of painting them and doing anything with them. It doesn't help by the fact that they're actually so flimsy, so I'd imagine that you put any sort of decorating on there and it's all going to sort of flake off quite quickly. But it was a nice addition, and I thought it was great that Airfix did include it with the set. So overall, this set for me is fantastic. I just love it. It's one of the best ones. And I've done a whole load more of the Airfix models since then. I particularly like these sort of box sets when they sort of combine several items together. And I've done sort of World War One, World War Two ones, and they're all really good fun. So I might feature those on a future What's in a Box. But hope you've enjoyed this walk down memory lane for me anyway. And I've certainly found it very nostalgic, having a look at some of this stuff that I started to do as a child and finally managed to complete as an adult. As always, if you're interested in this and other sort of films, then please subscribe to this channel, like and share it. And don't forget to give me some comments as what you think of this particular one. Thank you for watching.